When we think about social work, our minds usually jump to the tasks, right? Finding housing, connecting people to services, fighting for them in court. But the real work, the stuff that truly prepares someone for the most intense human experiences, well, it's not about what they do. It's about who they are. So let's get into what a social worker's most essential tool really is. So what is it? Forget the case files, the binders full of resources, or even the keys to the agency car. The most powerful, most critical, and honestly most complex tool a social worker has isn't something they can just pick up. And to really get what I'm talking about, we first have to step into the world they work in every single day. Okay, so let's start with this, the unseen challenge. Because before we can really appreciate this tool, we have to understand the incredibly intense environment that makes it so absolutely necessary in the first place. Social work just doesn't happen in a neat little box. The research calls it an ever-changing landscape of uncertainty. And what that really means is that practitioners are constantly stuck in a tug-of-war, caught between the desperate needs of their clients and the demands of the system. We're talking tight budgets, mountains of paperwork, and this constant pressure to be efficient, even when empathy is what's truly needed. And on top of all that, there's the sheer level of trauma they're exposed to. For example, social workers often serve people who are incarcerated. And in those populations, studies have found that the rate of PTSD can be as high as 60%. That is 10 times the rate in the general population. This isn't just a job. It's a daily deep dive into human suffering. All of this pressure, it creates this profound internal conflict. A social work student, Leah McComb, she said it perfectly. She talked about how hard it was to balance all these competing values. But the part that really gets me is when she says, "I did not feel comfortable with my professional power." That raises a huge question, right? How can you possibly use your authority to help others when you're struggling with so much uncertainty yourself? And that question, well, it brings us right to the heart of it all. In an environment this demanding, the most powerful tool can't be something external. It has to be the practitioner's own self. The name for this concept is the use of self. And look, this is not just about being yourself at work. No, it's the professional, purposeful, and conscious use of your own personality, your life experiences, even your own feelings, to build relationships and help people change. It's like turning your very essence into a finely tuned professional instrument. I absolutely love this one description I came across. It calls the use of self a fertile minefield. It's fertile because when you share your humanity, you can build these incredible, powerful connections. But it's a minefield because it's this really delicate, sometimes dangerous territory where your own personal vulnerabilities crash right into your professional responsibilities.
So how do you walk through that minefield without getting hurt? It all starts with building a really strong professional identity. And this is so much more than just a job title. It's about weaving everything together, your personal values, your professional code of ethics, your skills, your knowledge, and your own lived experiences into one solid, cohesive self. That's the bedrock. That's what keeps you grounded.
Now, to really get why that grounded identity is so vital, we need to understand the depth of the wounds social workers are often face-to-face with. There's a really powerful indigenous perspective on trauma that describes it as something that can literally disassociate or fragment a part of one's vital essence. It's a way of saying that the spirit itself has to break away just to survive unbearable pain.
This framework actually has a name for this experience: soul loss. It understands trauma not just as a psychological wound, but as a spiritual one, a shattering of the self that leaves a person feeling empty, disconnected. And here's the key. To help a client begin to heal from that kind of fragmentation, a social worker has to be whole enough themselves. They have to be ready to face that same potential for fragmentation in their own life and their own work.
So, okay, if yourself is the tool, how in the world do you keep it sharp, keep it safe, and keep it from breaking? This section is all about forging the internal armor you need to do this work. The research points to two fundamental skills that act like this protective but still flexible suit of armor. They are critical reflection and self-compassion. So let's break down what those really mean in the real world.
First up, critical reflection.
And this is so much more than just kind of thinking about your day. This is the hard, uncomfortable work of digging into your own unconscious biases, your own assumptions. And why? To make absolutely sure you aren't accidentally repeating the same oppressive power dynamics you're trying to help your clients escape. It's literally ethics in action. And we have to be real here. This is not easy. As one student researcher put it, genuine and honest critical reflection can be difficult and uncomfortable. It takes courage. It takes a willingness to look at some unsettling truths about yourself and the systems you're a part of.
The other side of this armor is self-compassion. And let's be super clear, this isn't self-pity. It's not about letting yourself off the hook. It's a practice built on 3 core ideas. First, choosing self-kindness over beating yourself up with self-judgment. Second, remembering our common humanity, that suffering is part of being human for everyone, instead of feeling alone in our pain. And third, mindfulness, being able to notice our pain without getting totally swept away by it.
And this can be incredibly practical. Researchers suggest a simple practice called the self-compassion break. When you're in a really tough moment, you just pause and follow 3 steps. 1, you mindfully notice, this is a moment of suffering. 2, you connect to common humanity. Suffering is a part of life. And 3, you offer yourself self-kindness. May I be kind to myself. It's such a powerful little tool to build resilience right in the moment. Okay, so we've looked at the tool, and we've looked at the skills needed to maintain it. So for this last section, let's talk about the ripple effect. Let's see how all this deep internal work actually reaches far beyond the social worker themselves.
The payoff for doing this inner work is huge, and it's very real. This isn't just about feeling better, it's about being better at the job. It helps head off burnout and what they call compassion fatigue. It actually increases empathy. It builds resilience to handle stress. It quiets that inner critic. It strengthens that core professional identity. And all of that leads to the thing that matters most, being better able to build those healing, trusting bonds with clients.
So you can really see this amazing chain reaction. It all starts with the internal practices, right? Self-compassion, critical reflection. That directly impacts the practitioner. They become more resilient, more emotionally regulated, and that strength then ripples outward. It leads to better outcomes for their clients, that contributes to safer communities, and what does that create? A more sustainable, effective workforce for everyone. It's all connected. In the end, this whole journey is about finding strength, not by avoiding suffering, but by moving through it. A client named Diaz, while he was working through his own trauma, put it best. He said, "Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls." And that idea that you can grow from trauma, that's at the very heart of this work, for the client and for the practitioner. So it turns out a social worker's most powerful tool is their own integrated, self-aware, and compassionate self. And that really leaves us with a final question, one that goes way beyond social work and applies to every single one of us. If the foundation of helping other people is truly knowing ourselves, what powerful tools are we all leaving unused in our own lives?